Hello. It turns out that I own a couple of these sort of generic power banks like this. This particular one is a 6-cell 18650 version. The rating is 50,000 milliamp hours, which is just probably not correct, given that 6 cells at 3400 milliamp hours would only amount to about 20,000 milliamp hours total, which these probably aren't that high of a capacity of cell, so I would guess probably somewhere in the 6 to 10,000 milliamp hour range. But that's not really the problem. That's more than enough for my needs anyway. And so we come to what happened this morning, which is I was carrying one in my bag on my way to work, and I was suddenly became aware of the fact that smoke was coming out of my bag. So I quickly put it down and, unzipped the bag and pulled out this, which is a ton of smoke was pouring out of my bag, and the smell of burning ABS plastic, and the little spring terminals in here were glowing like, basically glowing like heating elements inside. And so I quickly, put it down and it stopped smoking. And then I pressed the button and it showed full charge. So whatever fault had been in there was no longer there, at least for the time being. And so I decided, alright, well, let's open it up and see what happened. Now, mind you, this sort of power bank comes in two configurations, well, probably more than that, but it comes either as a kit, where you supply your own cells, which is what this is. I had filled it with these 1800 milliamp hour cells that were pulled out of an old, third-party laptop battery, and I had assumed that it was probably just a bad cell, that if it had shorted internally, one of the cells had gone short-circuit, then all the other cells in parallel with it would just start dumping current into that short and would probably cause the spring to heat up here. However, when I was pulling it apart to have a look at the other side of the board and see if any of the chips were blown, I noticed this little burn mark on the corner of the circuit board. And I also noticed a corresponding sort of burn mark right here. And I noticed that, I don't know how well you can see that right to the left of this positive terminal is a ground fill. And that ground fill is negative. So what I think actually happened is that, just from movement around inside my bag, the positive terminals shorted against the ground plane and caused the short that made the case melt here. And so, that's not great. I'm not really a fan of this design anymore. And now I'm wondering if this one, which as of yet has not exploded, might have a similar issue inside. So this one I bought pre-assembled. I wasn't with laptop pulls like this one. So I don't know if it's got the same kind of spring terminals inside, or if it has just cells wired together with insulated wire. And so I'm going to pull this apart and see what's inside. So, a few minutes of screwdriver prying later, and I should probably note at this point that this is something of a destructive process. I managed to get it open without breaking all of the snaps on the plastic housing, but I would still consider this, not really meant to be taken apart. I don't know if I'm going to be able to snap it back together or not when I'm done with this. But more importantly, I confirmed that it is, not only is it a different circuit board inside compared to the blue one here, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it is held on with insulated wires. And interestingly, they're just sort of tacked on across the top here. And I don't think they pose as much of a risk of shorting as that other one did, which had the, the strip of metal for the positive terminals, laying right across the ground plane like that. But I may touch up the solder work in there as long as I have it open anyway. But I just thought that was interesting, that it's a different circuit board with a bunch of sort of unmarked capacity 18650 cells all spot welded together on either side. So I don't know what the capacity of this is, actually. I may have to run some tests, but just thought that was interesting. And so this is what the other side of that board looks like as well. So it's a similar construction, but a distinctly different layout. So I hope that was interesting, and thanks for watching.